Okay. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. So my question would be, if there is some kind of if I experience some kind of difficult situation, things can, if they become too much, and I seem to not be able to keep the sati, the right effort, the joy, and so on. What would be best to do in such a situation if I am no Buddha or Jesus and can know exactly what to do? And would it be an idea to kind of withdraw from the situation, or to stay, or how can I think about such a thing?
Okay. What Jesus would do, I don't know.
Okay.
Let's really not go down that road too far.
I was joking.
But for the Buddha,
Yeah.
what would he do? I would say, in general, the way that the Buddha would handle it, because sometimes he was confronted. So there was no chance to avoid it in advance. But the first point would be to understand that we can avoid things in advance by see them coming.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of what wisdom is all about. An example of that is that if you're in a room and somebody's got a gun in that room, the thing that everybody's going to keep their eye on is which way is that gun pointed? Where is that gun pointing right now? Every instant of time, we're watching that gun and where it's pointed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because that's the most dangerous thing. If the gun goes off, we know exactly where the bullet's going to go. It's going to go in the direction of where the gun is pointed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cause and effect systems are set up like that, so that we may not know when and where the trigger is going to get pulled, but we can sure see which direction things are headed.
Mm-hmm.
That gives us an opportunity to either intervene or to stand out of the way.
Yeah.
Generally, standing out of the way is the better option.
Okay.
So once we get into a situation to where we didn't know the gun was loaded, but it sure went off, and we got to deal with it, we would still do it in the sense of, generally in the sense of avoidance,
Uh-huh.
to move away from it. An example of that is that the Buddha has 4 kinds of places that are to be avoided by monks.
Okay.
One of those kind of places is in a flood. Another kind of place would be in a drought. Another kind of place would be when there's pestilence or illness or sickness. And another fourth one would be where is war zone. Okay. That idea of the war zone, I think, is where you're coming from, because you don't have a shortage of donuts and that kind of problem. Well, Corona 19 is here, but basically the issue is that people are unhappy and fighting with each other.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Very typical. Humans do that. It's not just typical, it's instinctual.
Mm. Mm.
And we do it generally through competition,
Yeah.
which means conceit.
Uh-huh.
Now, conceit, actually, the Pali word for it is mana, and that how it manifests is in competition.
Okay.
So if someone insults someone, let us say A insults B, B will have the kind of thought is, I'm as good as you are. And so then he will retaliate, or perhaps we'll even go so far as to call it revenge. Because there are very many levels of insulting, both in the physical sense and also as how bad someone will take it.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
what one person's stupid remark is another person's deep insult.
Mm. Yeah. Mm.
Um, with that, people then get very competitive. They become agitated. Actually, what's going on is that they, in this regard, they misunderstand the actual danger that's going on.
Okay.
An example of what we're talking about is when I was a kid, we would hear this, and I kind of figured that it was right, but it took me into my adulthood before I figured out that it was absolutely 100% fact check proved. And that's the statement of sticks and stones will break my bones, but your words cannot harm me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I can understand it. Uh, in a way, I see. Yeah, I understand that because I am in control of what I let in and what I do with it and so on.
But more to the point, we're talking about you just walked into the middle of two other people's mess.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where I'm looking at it, not so much as a direct indication of you, but that you can begin to see human nature
Yeah.
as it boils up.
Yeah.
Because if you can see this stuff in its actions, you will inherently know what's the right thing to do.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
you'd be surprised at what a smile and a cheerful look will do at the right time and the right place. If you can
Yeah. It.
somehow convince each one of them that you're on their side. So if A
Yeah.
looks that way, you smile at B and get his attention and wink at him or something. And then when B is looking over there, A, you wink and smile at him
Yeah.
too.
I know it
Okay.
works because it worked on me. There was a person doing that with me and another person many years ago, and it really works. And I don't know how that happened because no, it was yeah.
In conflict, our herding behavior comes up,
Mm-hmm.
which then puts the boundary of the territory, and that guy is in his
Yeah.
territory alone, and I've got you in my boundary in my nest,
Yeah.
and it's safety. And
Yeah.
all of this is instinctual. It's just so interesting the way that the human instincts work.
Mm. Yeah. Yes, it really is. Yeah.
Okay, so that's part of what you want to do is because if you can get each one of them to think that you're his friend,
Yeah.
then you can somehow begin to bring them together because you've got a bond already between you and each one of them.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, again, this is in fact Brahma Vihara we're talking about. This is mudita, but is now what we would call is highly skillful
Yeah.
mudita.
I was thinking about that. One has to be skilled to make that happen, I guess, because one wrong word could really make things
No, one wrong word is your key for laughter.
okay. Okay. But if someone starts thinking, what do you have to laugh about? They could question even that.
The answer to that is how silly you guys are fighting with each other,
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah.
which gives them a different perspective.
Mm.
Sometimes that works and sometimes it don't, but it'll generally work the third or the fourth time.
Okay. Uh-huh.
That's almost how to say it. It seems almost magical. However, It is well known within the tradition of the Buddha, and there are suttas about it. And then we come to find out that it works in real life, even on the old masters, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that is that if you want something from someone,
Mm-hmm.
and you go and you ask for it and do everything you can, and they say no and firmly refuse you, most people will take that no as an answer, especially if it's a very firm no on the second time.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we keep doing it over and over and over again, by the third time, they get pretty softened up about it.
Oh, yeah. Like politicians do.
They lose that. They lower their guard. Their resistance is worn away.
Mm.
So persistence. But you know, this whole quality of persistence is built right into our practice.
Uh-huh.
Never mind, start again. Keep coming back, building that sati. Keep taking a deep breath over and over and over again. Come back and be here now.
Yeah.
That's got a lot of persistence
Yeah.
right there in it. And so that's basically a key element of the practice.
Mm.
And it works. Generally, the time that it actually works is the time before we quit. Which then runs under the realm of it was the last place I looked. Well, yeah, because when you found it, you stopped looking at the places.
Yeah. Yeah.
So persistence has a quality
Yeah.
that used not only for your own mind and making sure,
Mm.
and this is where that talk that we had about upekkha is
Mm.
your sea legs.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The sea legs. You got to be able to stand there and keep standing there no matter how Florida shakes
Yeah. Okay. Mm.
and not lose it, not lose your balance, not lose your cool,
Mm.
which in that regard would be don't lose your nirvana.
Yeah. Okay. Mm.
Don't lose your cool. And that the situation will solve itself.
Mm.
However, if it is actually dangerous, and you'll have to find that out based upon your own level of fear,
Mm.
whether it's time to leave.
Okay.
But you always want to leave a back door.
Yeah. Okay.
For instance, if the battle is too big or it's too going on and you walked in too late, then just leave it.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Mm.
Or at least it's nothing that you can solve easily and happily. They're likely to suck you right in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the point of wisdom, is to make sure that you don't get sucked into it. So long as you are joyful and cheerful and a mind that's void of your own selfishness, then you can play with this toy of two angry old men.
Mm.
But when you actually begin to have feelings, when you become afraid,
Mm.
or you see one of them right and the other one wrong, and you begin to divide in your own mind, etc., like that, then that's when the selfishness comes in. That's exactly the time to get up and walk out.
Okay.
Say, I got to go, folks.
Yeah.
I got to go catch a taxi,
Uh,
or I got a flight waiting,
okay.
or even nature calls, and we don't even have to explain what that means.
Okay.
Because in fact, nature does call. My nature tells me to get
Yeah.
out of here.
Mm.
So that's the way to handle a kind of a tense situation.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and you're going to have them from time to time in the place that you are. But I bet that two things will happen. One is your skill at doing this will grow, and two, your notoriety or your reputation will also.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So that two old men are fighting in the room, and you walk in, and that you immediately just walking in, and the whole place changes.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I've experienced some of this with my own family, which I never thought would be possible at all. And it actually happens. It is amazing. Yeah.
If you help change the overall environment that people are in, they will change according to that environment.
Yeah.
They do it both on a moment by moment basis and in a kind of a general way also.
Okay.
Almost as if the good vibrations linger, though we don't remember.
Okay.
Which is something really interesting that you might want to consider along with this. And we're not talking about any one person, but rather life in general, is that as we're growing up, we tend to remember the big things, and we tend to not remember the little things. Or we tend to remember big events that don't happen often, and we tend to not remember a lot of events that happen over and over and over again. So what that means is that we are automatically setting ourselves up just because of that inbred memory system, is that we tend to remember our traumas and our bad experiences, and we tend to forget the good times that we've had.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, in fact, you and I read the whole or most of the talk of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa about the void mind.
Yeah.
That natural void mind, that children are naturally in that void mind, probably even more so than they are in the cloudy feel bad mind. But as we grow older, we tend to spend more and more time in the feel bad mind, and less time in that void mind that is not selfish, is playful instead.
Yeah.
In fact, you can see this happening in a 3-year-old, where you've got 2 3-year-olds in a nursery, let's say, and one of them's playing with a truck and he's going zoom, 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 and the other little boy thinks, oh, I want to have fun too, but because I see this other boy having fun with that truck, I have to have that truck to have fun with. Right? And so now he's getting jealous and he begins to feel bad, where in fact he could go get another truck off the shelf and go sit down with it with a zoom, zoom, zoom with his friend, and nothing's there. But he might wind up throwing a tantrum and or taking the truck or hitting the kid. Somebody gets a spanking, and now it's a trauma that's really set into a kid's mind.
Yeah.
Okay, and he doesn't really understand at that age all of the ramifications of what, why, when, where, and how. What he basically is left with is the feeling of being unjustly punished,
Yeah.
which can almost become a worldview.
Okay.
Now, here's what happens is that as people get really older and older and older, while they do tend to begin to forget the new things, all of them that are happening, and they can only remember years ago, the past, and reminisce. What they're really pointing to is that by staying in the past and reminiscing, they're highly likely in that reminiscing to trip over a post-traumatic stress,
Okay.
something that happened that makes them feel bad.
Mm.
So this is part of the reason why we want to keep the old folks out of their past completely, because that's dangerous territory, and is all the more dangerous because of the aging process. Along with it's our natural way of doing things is to remember the dangers and to forget about the easy times.
Mm. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
And if we do remember the easy times, more than likely what will happen is a longing or a desire to regain that past, which
Mm.
is another way of suffering.
Mm. Yeah.
Wanting things that we've lost, wanting things that we can never have again.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so we pine for the past and or we remember and it troubles us.
Mm.
So this is the dual reason to keep people out of the past. Now, here's something that's generally interesting is that you're new to the facility, but you'll get to know people. But some of these guys and ladies have been with each other for a number of years. They've got a history now.
Mm.
And some of them have a history of not getting along with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And
Absolutely.
so there's going to be some resistance then
Yeah.
with that. But you
Yeah.
can also use it to your advantage sometime when you can say, hey, you guys have been fighting all of this time. Who won? Why don't you call it a draw and be friends?
Yeah.
Because when they ask that question, who won, both of them will say, me, I won. And you can say, see, both of you are champions. So let's quit the fight.
Yeah.
Now, you might have to go through that 3, 4, 5 times as kind of a ceremony, but they'll get it. And I would say that those are the really ground in problems that you might run across.
Mm-hmm.
Is those guys who've been fighting with each other for years.
Mm.
Sometimes you'll find two old men still fighting with each other over another female resident who's already dead now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
don't know really what's going to happen at that in regard of how the old fights get going.
No.
The answer is don't try to go into it.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
That digging into the past between the
No.
two of them is completely irrelevant. You got to stay right with the here now with it.
Yeah.
And so, um,
Mm.
so asking them who wins is really a here now question. It's not who won each one of those fights,
Mm.
but rather who's the winner here. And both of them will say yes. But before you get them to argue about it, you say, well, wonderful. Yeehaw, both of you are the winner. Now that you've won this fight, why don't you quit?
Yeah.
So that's about the best I can do with that
Yeah.
question that
Uh,
you have about what to do about those kind of situations. A lot of it has to do with your own headspace. If you're not ready for it, take a hike.
yeah. That's very helpful. It's really good to know. I like to know the context of things, the framework. I try to find out about that at work too, so then I can do
Hmm.
my thing within those uh, structural limitations.
You can find a way to enjoy this job. This can be quite
Yeah,
a delightful situation.
yeah, I'm
You've
trying.
already seen that
Yeah,
it does work. That there was one old problem that got solved, and you
yeah,
don't really quite know what happened, but you
no,
do know that joy was the glue.
yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
or the lubricant, as the analogy may flow.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yes.
You have any more questions about that right now?
No, not about that. Not right now, I think. Uh, uh,
So, see,
no.
you are a Buddha after all.
Yeah. Well,
Change
I
that.
some I
We'll
some
change that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say sometimes I seem to be this champion after all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or
Right.
to do make things in a different way than I used to do before. Yeah, I can see the big difference in what happens around me too. Not just with me, but also in life in general,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Yeah. Mm.
All right. Well, I've got another guy that's waiting on a call, so we'll go ahead and finish now. And I'm sure you'll figure out something to ask very soon, and we
Yeah.
can go right back into it. I like it. You're such a dear friend, Agnes. I'm glad I know you.
Thank you so much. It's been life changing to talk with you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.